looks like we've got a fair amount of folks on the call, so we can get started with our QMR system demo. I'm Stephanie Copal. I am the CMS lead on the new QMR system build, and we are so excited to be sharing it with you today and appreciate your time to give a little demo of what you'll be using. This will just be a demo of the application itself, walking through the main features and functionalities of the site. This exact demo will be repeated next week on Tuesday, the 13th. If you are attending today, you do not need to attend the session on Tuesday. It will be a repeat of what we are doing here. In addition, on the 15th, next Thursday, there will be a training on the policy portion of the site. And today we'll just be reviewing the technology piece of QMR. As we go through, please add any questions to the Q&A box below. And after the site demo, we will go through and answer as many as we have time for. Before we jump into the demo, I wanted to make a quick announcement. You all should be receiving an email with this same information later today, but there are some issues with the Mac Quality TA mailbox, the email address where you would typically send any policy-related questions due to an agency-wide email transition at CMS. So for now, if you are sending a policy-related question to that mailbox, please be sure you copy the MDCT help mailbox as well until we know that the TA mailbox is working again. Now that we have all that housekeeping out of the way, we can start talking about the new QMR site. Before I share my screen and show you the site, hopefully most, if not all of you, have requested a role in IDM to gain access to the site. If you have not, some emails have been sent out with instructions, or you can email the MDCT help desk to get instructions on how to gain access. Something different on this site than you may have been accustomed to in the previous version of quality measures is that all state users have one role. There's no approver role, there's no hierarchy. This was done to allow the states to operate in whatever fashion makes sense within your state. So you all can coordinate amongst yourselves how you want to conduct the review and approval process just within your state before submission. And this allows everyone the most flexibility to do that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just a quick warning that I'll be demoing to you today from a test environment. There are a couple things that you'll see that will not appear in the site that you can log into, and I'll highlight those, but just a few extra things that we added in our testing site to support all the testing we did to make sure that this site is perfect for you all to start using soon. So without further ado, here is the home screen of the new MDCT QMR site. You'll note that the site automatically lands on FY21. In the upper right-hand corner, it'll orient you to the year you're in. Because we are reporting in for FY21 and FY22 in this reporting period, you'll see you can toggle between them by selecting a new year and then going back. So just make sure you're aware of what year you're in as you are entering data. This home screen is where you'll start to navigate into each of your core sets to start completing your measures. Upon first login, you'll note that The adult corset measures already exist since the majority of states all report it the exact same way. Right now, the status is complete because I set it up to show you something a bit later, but normally it will say not started. You'll see that it indicates the type of corset, adult, right here, and then the status again will change. You can take some actions over here with these 3 dots that allows you to export. This complete all measures and reset all measures is one of those testing things that exists in what I'm showing you, but not in the site that you'll be using. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some corsets here so we can start doing some of our reporting. You'll see some tiles at the bottom that will help you take the next step to add a child corset. When we navigate into here, it will ask us how we're reporting our child corset, whether we're reporting in separate corsets for Medicaid and CHIP or in a combined corset. So I'm going to go ahead and select combined and click create. And then it'll take us back to our home screen and our child corset is available for us to start working on. But maybe you selected that and it came up and you realized, oh no, I meant to select that we are reporting separately. You can go ahead and navigate over here and click delete. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen accidentally and you don't lose any data by accidentally deleting something. So we have this handy pop-up that forces you to type in the word delete to confirm this is what you are choosing to do. Once you delete a corset, that data is gone and you will have to re-enter it for awareness. So we'll go ahead and delete that corset. You'll see now that we can go back and add a child corset. I realize that I want to report separately, so I'm going to make that selection up here and create. And you'll see here that it created 2 separate corsets for child. You'll also notice that at the bottom, it won't let you add another child corset because you've already created your child corsets. So there's no need to add an additional one. For health home, if your state has a health home corset for any fiscal year, you can go to that tile and follow a similar pattern. There will be a drop down that shows all of the spas that that you need to report on for this fiscal year. So I'll go ahead and select the one that is available to me and I'll click create. And we'll get back to the home screen and you'll see that we have our health home corset right here. You can see the type of each has changed and the status is different. And I'll explain why these new child corsets show in progress and health home shows not started. But you can also see from this home screen how many actual measures are completed just at a glance, right? You can see that we haven't even started health home, but that we've filled out all the adult measures, which is really handy. And you'll also note down here, once we created our health home corset, it won't let us add another one. So it really helps you navigate exactly what you need and nothing that you don't. So we'll go into the child corset page. You'll see on this screen that it lists all of the child corset measures. And you can go through there. On the top, this blue bar throughout the site is going to orient you where you are. So you know at a glance that you are in the child corset, the Medicaid corset, and not the CHIP. And you'll see that all of these measures have the status of not started. It has today's date and this time because I just created this child corset. We'll go down to these that are already marked complete and click into those. So the ones that are automatically marked complete are instances where CMS has received this data from alternate sources. So there's nothing for you to do here. There's no action to be taken on your part, but just shows you that this is information CMS needs, but we're getting it elsewhere. We don't need anything from you at this time. So we can go back. We're back in our child core set. You can see at the top that there is a handy little chart to show the total measures completed. So we have a bit of a ways to go to complete this core set. And we can jump in to an actual measure. So first thing you'll notice when we land here, we have our nice blue bar that's going to orient us. You can see that we're in fiscal year 2021, and then the measure that we are in. This blue bar will follow us as we scroll down the screen. So at any given time, you can click save, and it'll save and have this green pop up down at the bottom that it was successfully saved. So as you're working, I know these forms get very long, that you can click save. It's always available to you. In addition, you can print from here, and I'll just show you how that works. When you click the print button, it'll load a preview and allow you to save it as a PDF for the individual measure, and I'll show how we can print an entire course set a little later. Something else that is different in this new system and the way that CMS is collecting quality measure data is that we are asking that each state complete each measure, even if it means telling us that we are not reporting on this measure. So the first question in every single measure is, are you reporting on this measure? Yes or no? If you click yes, you'll navigate through the form and fill it out and submit data to CMS. If you select no, you're not reporting on this measure, CMS is asking states to tell us why, so we can better understand why a state might not be reporting on a specific measure. Is the service not covered? Is the data not available? Are there limitations? And selecting any of those, you can go down and complete measure. But we do ask that each state complete each and every measure, even if you are choosing not to submit data to CMS, which would include telling us why. As we navigate through, just note that with these radio buttons that appear here, that using the arrows on your keyboard will change the selection rather than kind of tab through the questions. So just be careful using your keyboard to navigate and know that you may be changing an answer unknowingly. So we suggest that you use your mouse to kind of click through and make selections. As we go through the form, I want to show you some different examples of types of validation we have. As you know, there are a ton of back-end validations for these measures, and I want to show you how different validations operate and how you'll be alerted as you are going through and filling out the form. The first really important piece to keep in mind is that this form is created with the idea that the user will start and fill out the form in order. As you know, with those validations, some parts later in the form rely on information provided at the beginning of the form. So if you fill it out of order, you won't receive the correct validations and could potentially be submitting incorrect data. So we suggest that you start at the top and fill it out in order from top to bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and make some selections here. To give an example of validations for date range, for example, I am going to say that the start date is 9/2021. You can either type this in on your keyboard or use this picker here. But if I start typing an end date that occurs before the start date, which wouldn't make sense, you will see in a moment a pop-up come up on the bottom of the screen telling me that the start date must be before the end date, and it will clear that data that is incorrect and allow me to enter something new. So when I fix that, no validation. So one place you'll see validations are in the center bottom of the screen. You'll also see that for save. Successfully saved. I'm going to go through and just make some more selections and get down to the NDR sets. So this is a really good example of needing to fill out questions at the top so that questions at the bottom are working properly. So we selected above an administrative data source only. So with that, the rate for the NDR set will auto-calculate and the user cannot override it. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in, and you can't see me typing, but I am trying to type over this and it's not letting me. The rate is auto-calculated and cannot be overridden. So if I go up here and I add administrative data plus an alternate data source and go back down, this will now allow me to override this rate. And I know that the TA team will talk more about these rules in their policy training late next week, but just want to show you a little bit about how this functions. So we can go down, more questions. Something else to note is that these text boxes, these large text boxes, have these little tiny lines in the bottom right-hand corner. If you hover over them, you can expand this text box. So in case you have a lot to write here, you can expand it to make room for everything that you need to say. We also have the opportunity for states to add attachments. Down here, you can drag and drop or browse and upload manually from your computer. And then we get to the end. First, I want to highlight this clear data button, this red button. You will not see this when you log into the site. This is something that we use for testing. Since we do so much testing and entering data, it's a quick way for us to clear it and test a different way. So you will not see that. What you will see is this validate measure and complete measure button. You saw the validation with the date range where it appeared as I was typing something that was incorrect and alerting me in line in the moment I was doing it. This validate measure is a manual validation. So it's going to take into account a ton of things throughout the form that it needs to run manually because it's taking into account different selections from different questions. So I'm going to go ahead and click validate measure. And it's telling me success, the measure has been validated successfully. That is great. I'm going to go ahead and delete something so you can see a validation error. So we can click validate measure again, and I get this error that the date range must be completed. Also a note, if you saw the pop-up on the bottom center of the screen, that with each click of validate measure or complete measure, the measure is automatically saved. So you can see here, I have this error, so I can go back up to the date range, fill it out, navigate back down to the bottom and validate again and see that it cleared the measure. I'm sure many of you are probably wondering, why didn't I get an error for not filling out all of the questions? There are many blank questions. Something else different in this site is that there are no hard stops. So we are giving you validation warnings. We're giving you errors to show you where you may need to take a second look at your data, but we do not want to block any of you from submitting things to CMS, even if they are incomplete. So you'll see that I did not fill out part of this measure, and I'm going to hit the complete measure, and it's going to allow me to mark this measure complete, even though I didn't fill it out completely. I want to show an error. I want it to throw up an error just so I can show you what happens if you try and submit, or if you try and complete a measure when there is an issue on the form. So if I go to complete measure, it's warning me, hey, there's still errors on this measure. Would you like to complete? Are you sure you want to complete? And I am going to select yes, that I know there's an issue, but I want to submit it anyway. This is the best I can do, perhaps. This is the most information I have. So I'm going to click yes, and it's going to allow me to complete, and we'll take you back to the measure list, and you'll see we were working in A and B CH. We marked it as yes, we're reporting in fiscal year 2021, and we marked it complete at 122. Another piece of that no hard stops is that if you want to go back in after clicking complete, you can edit this. So if CMS comes back with some requests for changes as they're reviewing it, or potentially you get more information after you click complete, you can go ahead and make those changes and click complete again. So again, I'll get that same validation error. I would still like to complete, and you see that it's updated to complete at 123. You'll also note that this total measures completed up here has gone from 3 to 4. So it moves and responds as you make changes. One other major thing to note is that if teams have more than one person in the system at the same time, that we ask that the teams coordinate with each other to make sure only one person is working on a specific measure at the same time. You can have more than one person in the system at a time filling out different measures, but there may be issues if 2 people are working in the exact same measure at the same time. So please be sure that you're coordinating. So you'll see that the submit core set button is grayed out here because we haven't completed the total measures for this core set. I'm going to go back and navigate to those adult measures that showed complete earlier when we first logged in. And you'll see the total measures completed are all 32. If you scroll down, you can see they're all completed. And you might be wondering, why is this submit core set button still grayed out? The system will not allow you to submit the entire core set until all the measures are completed and the qualifier questions. The qualifier questions have been slightly rebranded from the previous application. You may know them as admin questions. You can see the status of those admin questions underneath the link. So you can see this is incomplete and that we must complete the qualifier questions before we submit the core set. So I'm going to navigate in here. This is set up in a very similar way to the measures themselves. You'll see your blue bar orienting you, your save, your print. And you can go through and fill this out. We have the same validate down here. And you can see there's an error. I am just going to complete these qualifier questions. It's going to give me that same warning that you have errors. Do you still want to complete? I'm going to say yes. So now that we've completed those, you can see the status has changed. You have this nice little green circle with the check mark, and the submit core set button is no longer grayed out, and we can submit it. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that. We get that pop up. The core set is submitted successfully. Yay, big celebrations. This is exciting. And when we go back to the home screen, you can see that the status of the adult core set is submitted. While we are on the home screen, I do want to demonstrate that you can click on these little 3 dots and click export. So this will allow you to export all the measures in a given core set. We already went over how to do it for an individual measure, but if you're trying to export all the measures in a core set, you can do it from that little drop down on the home screen, and it will take you to this screen. These buttons here will let you navigate down to a certain measure if you want. But once you're on this screen, you can click this orange print PDF button. It'll take a second to prepare because it is very long, as you can imagine. But what's really fun is that this PDF will also allow you to click through and navigate to any specific measure. And you can see these are all blank because we haven't filled them out, but you can see that it's 67 pages of measures. So we can now go back to the home screen. One other thing that I didn't touch on is that the bottom of every screen and within the measure screens themselves, also on the top, are the email addresses for the different support options. So the MDCT help email address will be for site issues, for access, for errors, navigation issues, questions about how to do something in the site. And then the Mac Quality TA email address is for policy and content related questions. And if you do accidentally send your question to the wrong email address, they will forward it onto the right one, so don't worry about that. A couple last minute things I want to make sure that I touched on before we start going through the questions entered. I want to say again that the measures will remain editable even after you mark them complete. We hope that you are cautious about hitting complete for a measure, as we'll be checking that in our review to know when we can start looking at measures. But just wanted to streamline the process of making updates as needed, because the data that's entered into this system by you all is the data that will be used to create the scorecard and the data that will be used for the quality measures for your state. So if a change needs to be made, the states have to go in and make that, and we wanted to make that easy for you all. The help desk team, as well as the technical assistance team, can actually log in and see what you're seeing in real time. So if you're having an issue, the technical assistance team can go in and see how you filled it out and maybe say, hey, I think it should look like this instead. So just know that when you're asking questions, if you want to say, hey, I filled out this measure and I'm not sure if this is the correct way, could you take a look? The technical assistance team has the ability to go in and do that. To answer some questions that we've received in the past, this site will hold the data from FY21 forward. Everything before that is still available in the old Mac Pro system, and you can log in there if you need access to that old data, but it will not be available in this new system. But as we continue to add reporting years in the new site, you'll always be able to go through and check those there. I think that I've covered everything on my end, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for now, and we can start going through the questions. My colleague David is going to help me out and read some aloud.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, so we'll kind of start off the top here. Since CY 2020 reporting was delayed, what is the deadline for CY 20 and CY 21 health home reporting?
That is going to be a question for the policy team. For anything that is going to be reported in this site, my understanding is that both fiscal year 21 and 22 will be due by December 31st, 2022. But if there are more specific questions, please email the technical assistance email address.
Awesome. Okay, this question is from Bill. Suppose you report data from another source and the state disagrees with it or wants to validate it.
That is going to be another question for the policy team on how to best enter that into the site. So it makes sense to them as they're pulling the data.
Awesome. Here's another question. Is there an option to roll back to entries from previously? So like 2 days ago or 3 days ago?
There is not an option available to navigate back to previous saved versions, no.
I know you covered this, but I just want to make sure it's clear. Somebody asked, can you complete a measure without validating the measure?
Yes, so actually I will go ahead and share my screen again and just show you what happens. Because when you click the complete measure, it actually runs the validation in tandem. So if I go back into child core set and I go into a brand new measure that I haven't filled anything out for, if I go down and click complete measure, you'll see that it does the validation at the same time. So all of these validation errors pop up and it is alerting me that I have them before I would click complete. I can click yes, and it'll show as complete. But we suggest that you use the validate button to manually validate first before clicking complete and marking it as complete.
Awesome. I think this one might be another one to send to the help desk email, but I'll ask. So when completing the child report, when it asks if I'm reporting on an adult measure, do I choose population not covered or other?
That's going to be a question for the policy team, yes.
Is the export available only in PDF or is a .csv also an option?
Currently, our only option for export is PDF, yes.
Okay. Are roles still associated? For example, state director, state editor, etc. Will the state director still need to certify the results prior to submission to CMS?
That's a really good question. And no, we've gotten rid of the different types of state roles. That was some feedback that we received from state users before building this new site, that a lot of these roles didn't correlate to actual state roles in a way that made sense. And so we made this system as flexible as possible to accommodate whatever way the state has their approval process set up. So any user can go in and click complete or submit a core set. And we recommend that the states kind of formulate their own process that works for them to walk through like approvals and who's going to submit and things like that.
Awesome. Are we receiving new usernames and passwords for this, or do we use the same username and password we previously used for Mac Pro?
So in Mac Pro, towards the end of the last Mac Pro reporting period, the site moved to IDM. So if you had an IDM login, username and password, you can use that same username and password, but you will have to request a new role as this is a new site. And if you need assistance with that, you can email the MDCT help email address.
Awesome. This one from Paul Kirby. Hi, what you just said about going in order referring to entry within one measure only, right? i.e., is it okay to do measures out of order within the measure list since validation is at the measure level?
Great question. Yes, the validation is at the measure level. You can complete the measures in whatever order you want, but within a singular measure, you want to fill it out from top to bottom in order.
Will the data within this new system be accessible for analytics by states?
That is a great question, and I think a better question for policy to answer how they will be using and making that data available.
Okay. Is it possible to submit stratifications, race, geography, etc., as a file instead of entering them manually?
Not in this iteration of the application. All the data has to be entered manually through the system, but that is something we are looking into for future versions of this site.
Okay. Why Medicaid and CHIP are separate reporting for the child core set measures? Are we allowed to submit the combined rates?
Yes, so each state manages their Medicaid and CHIP in their own way, and each state gets to determine how they want to submit their data to CMS. If a state has questions about whether they should be submitting separately or combined for the Medicaid and CHIP child core sets, you can email the policy email box to help clarify that for your individual state.
Alrighty, and then this one from Jamie. Can you go over how to make a change to a measure after it is marked as completed?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we are back in that child core set. You saw just now we were in AMRCH and we marked it as complete. If I go in, this is the one that I didn't answer any single question and hit complete. So I can go in and click and it operates just the same as if I did not click complete. I can save it again. And actually, if it was marked complete and I go in and make changes and navigate back, you can see the status actually does change to in progress. So it was complete. We navigated in, made some changes, and it goes back to in progress. We can go back in, click complete measure, and then it'll change back to complete.
Thank you. This one from Aiden. If different people are submitting data from the same state, can they see each other's data?
Yes, another great question. Again, our big message here is we do not want state users from the same state working in the same measure. But if I am working in, let's say, the child core set and my colleague is working in the adult core set, I can navigate over to the adult core set and see what my colleague has entered. It is all available. It's like one instance for an entire state. So again, as long as two people are not working in the same measure, that all the data will save appropriately and be available to anyone who logs in from that state only. No state is able to see the data entered for another state besides their own.
Thank you. This one from Connie. Will we still get email notifications once measures are submitted to CMS?
You will not receive notifications once the measures are submitted to CMS. Once you submit or once you click complete on a measure or submit your core set, if any changes are required, you will hear from the CMS team.
This one from John. Will we be able to view archived reports submitted in MacPro from this interface?
No, anything submitted in the old MacPro system is still available in the old MacPro system if you want to log in there and view your data that way. But the data entered in the old MacPro system will not be available in the new MDCT QMR interface.
Question regarding reporting dates. So from Jim, he's just confirming the reporting date ranges for FFY 2021 are 1/1/2020 to 12/31/2020, and then for FFY 2022, it's January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
I'm going to have to defer to the policy team on that. So if that individual wants to email the email box.
Can the date ranges for each measure be auto-populated to the expected date ranges to reduce data entry?
That is definitely something that we are considering in a future release. Right now, that is not implemented and won't be implemented in this reporting period, but definitely something we're considering for future iterations.
This one from Herbert. In case the system is down, do we have a backup plan in place?
We do have contingencies from the technical perspective that the site should not be down for an extended period of time. If that does happen, we will reach out to users with further instruction.
This one from Zamba. I have access to the MDCT site, but cannot see the links to report core set data. When will the reporting become available?
That is curious if that user is just seeing the homepage, because at minimum, the user should see the adult core set already populated with the options to add child core set and potentially health home, dependent on their state requirements for that year. So if that's happening, please email the MDCT help desk and include a screenshot if possible to show us what you're encountering, and we'll work through that with you.
Okay, this one regarding the webinars. Will the webinars next week be at the same time?
The webinars next week are also at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday and Thursday, the 13th and the 15th.
And then we have another one asking for the reporting timeline to the policy folks. Right?
Yes.
That's all the ones that we have right now.
Okay, great. One other thing that I realized I did not mention, you all should have received an invitation to office hours that begin tomorrow. These are 30-minute appointments 2 times per week. And they're just open-ended calls. If you are working and you have a quick question and you'd rather hop in that call and ask your site-related question, we'd be happy to answer it in real time for you. We know that this is a lot of reporting to do at one time and want to offer you all the most support that we can. So we'll have those through the end of September for now, potentially longer. But please be sure to join if you have a question. That would be in addition to emailing the help desk. You can do either one. Just note that those office hours, that open Zoom is for site issues only. For login issues or, the state user who had the question earlier about the homepage not having links to the core set, that would be a perfect question to just hop in the Zoom, share your screen, show us what's going on, and we can troubleshoot with you in real time.
Got a couple of more questions that came in. How will the full transcript and information be available for after this call?
We will be taking this recording as well as a transcript, and we will post it to medicaid.gov, which might take a little bit, but as soon as we get the recording, we will email it out to everyone who is on the attendee list for you to go back to refer to as well.
Thank you. And then will the training next Thursday be offered again or be available via recording?
So the second option of this site demo will be on Tuesday, and it will be another live demo, not a recording of this one, a separate instance. And then the training on Thursday will be live, not recorded, and that's related to policy.
That's all we got right now.
Okay. Well, I see we have about 13 minutes left. We'll hang back in case there are any other questions, but feel free to drop and take a couple minutes back for yourselves. But thank you so much for joining. We're so excited for you all to use this new site. We took a lot of user feedback into consideration when building it, so we hope you are as excited about it as we are. So thanks again for your time today, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions, feedback, or anything.